welcome to the first episode of the Player 4 podcast where we don't have a Alex.
Yeah, Hey, wait, did we just start the episode? That's awesome. That was a great intro.
Right?
That was smooth. We were just like talking and then you just said that and now we're in the episode. But yeah, it is very sad that Alex is not here, but he's doing something that's worthy of his time right now.
Oh, I think so. What is it called? I think it's just with an L. Laser Team.
Yes, with a Z.
With a Z.
But I'm not sure where. Maybe it's Laser Teasm.
Laser Terra, I think is what I wrote.
Yeah, that's what you wrote.
Laser Teasm, Laser Teams, Lasers, Laser. It could have it at the beginning. It's Laser.
So hey, it's Player 4 Podcast.
Player 4 Podcast. Welcome to the podcast. The podcast of awesomeness.
It's all you, Tristan.
I know. I'm Tristan. I am Tristan, a.k.a. Chakrazier from the Rooster Teeth website.
Hey, wait. That's weird. That's really weird that Alex is not next. I actually have to be next. I'm Joseph, a.k.a. J. Dunlap.
And I am Malachi, a.k.a. Kiba.
Okay, so what Kiba is this? Where are you, Kiba?
Wait, where am I? What do you mean, what? In my room from my computer. That's where I am right now.
That is the only place he gets
That's not
Kiba
true, though,
from.
because here on Skype, you're Lucario.
Oh, yeah. No, Suki Kiba is what I use now for everything. So I literally try to get the username Suki Kiba wherever I can now. So anything, anywhere as I am, I'd be Suki Kiba. The only reason why anything else is a different name is because I was not either able to obtain a name or it was before I set that as my permanent name that I want to try to keep.
Is that who you are on Warframe, then?
My character, yeah, my character name is that, yes.
That's
Suki
kind
Kiba.
of what I meant.
I call him Tusky Caddy.
Tusky Caddy.
Oh, that's cute. You got a nickname.
Yeah, right?
I always try to get that name now. Wherever anything I put my name on.
So you could, go on the Rooster Teeth website,
website,
get the Suki Kiba as your name,
Yeah,
and then I could
that.
friend you. You could do it like right now. It'd be crazy. That would be like revolutionary for our podcast. We actually added a member to the Rooster Teeth community during the podcast.
Let's make that a thing. So, yeah, I've been meaning to ask about that, because you keep saying a.k.a. Kiba, and I have no idea why you're a.k.a. Kiba, because to me you're Lucario or just straight up Malachi.
Wait, is it Lucario? I thought it was Lucerino.
No, there's no N.
Oh.
Awkward.
Well, I feel silly.
No, I had a raid leader one time who would call targets, because it was PvP raids in Lord of the Rings Online. He would call targets and completely butcher the pronunciation of every name he ever called. That kind of thing, like assuming there's an N in it and not really looking at it, just be like, Lucarno, get him.
Cardinal.
And what was worse was he was Australian, so we couldn't really understand anything he said, so it was always, more dots now.
We need more dots.
And my roommate at the time was like, who's that British guy who keeps saying more dots all the time at like 11 at night?
That's not a dot. This is a dot.
Okay, so Crocodile Dundee's going to be on the screen now.
Right? Crocodile Dundee.
In some way, he needs to look like he's playing a MMORPG of some kind.
I can do it.
Like a wizard robe. Ooh, I put on my robe and wizard hat.
Your robe and wizard hat? But it turns out you're a judge.
Judge of what? Character?
I don't know, like a Supreme Court justice? Are you a good judge of character or a bad judge of...
Wait, so in the Harry Potter world,
okay,
could the Supreme Court also have wizard hats?
I suppose they could. I don't see why not. They like wizard hats, right? Some of them wear wizard hats.
No, I was trying to be fast and I spelled my name wrong.
LOL.
You spelled your name... So I've been sitting here hitting search repeatedly.
Wait, can you edit that?
Yes, you can.
Petition Barb, I think.
No, there's a feature now.
Oh, is there? Oh, there is, isn't there?
Yes.
Where do you
once
do
a week.
Yes. It is once a week. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is you can go up at the top where it says you're signed in, where your name is.
Yeah.
You drop it down and go to My Settings. And the first page it takes you is change email address, change username, change password. And so you can change your username so that's spelled correctly. Because I've been sitting on this screen clicking search with Suki Kiba punched into the search bar for like the whole time that Joseph was talking. I was pretending to pay attention to him while I was clicking this button.
There's some Kiba dude on that Rooster Teeth website. I don't know who he is.
I keep punching in Suki Kiba and it keeps coming up with nothing in the search.
Well, hold on, I'm going
Does caps matter? Because Kiba is caps.
Capital T,
capital K on Kiva.
capital T
Check
on
it out.
Kiva.
Monitor capture. Okay, so how do I spell it?
TSUKI
TSUKI.
KIBA. That's a second set of KI, by the way. It's KIKI.
KIKIBA?
Yeah.
Suki Kiba.
Okay, Tsukikiba. Okay. I never quite understood the spelling of that, but now it makes sense. But
It's supposed to be Moonfang.
But your avatar has a nice head of hair. That's cool. Add his friend.
Really? I feel cheated. I'm hitting search repeatedly, and he's not
Don't
coming
search.
up.
Just type in /.
User/. Oh,
RoosterTeeth.com/user/Tsukikiba. Everyone go and add him. We want him to have 20 friends by next week. So everyone who is a fan of us, go and add that. What are my notifications? Okay. Matt317 saw Laser Team. I think we should read his journal on air. So he saw Laser Team last night. He got the digital copy for backers. He liked it a lot. It wasn't perfect, but it was very enjoyable. That's what you said, Tristan. Growing pains and such.
Yeah.
So yeah, good review. Awesome. Thanks for the review, Matt. That is on the podcast now. And I'll close this now. So back to window capture. Yay!
I've been on window capture this whole time.
Well, I was on monitor capture just now.
Oh, window capture. No, I'm still on monitor. Yay!
Okay, so we were talking about robes and wizard hats. Can we go back to that?
Robes and wizard hats?
Yes, because I have meant to bring this up before. Have either of you heard the story of Yar Yar Hump Hump?
No.
No.
Yar Yar Hump Hump, somewhat of a racy story, but it is a World of Warcraft story that has gone down in legend, much in the same way that Leroy Jenkins has, but more specifically localized to the WoW community. Whereas Leroy Jenkins is a pop culture icon now. I mean, he's a card in Hearthstone for crying out loud. So Yar Yar Hump Hump is a story that most WoW players are familiar with, and it comes from a story that was posted on the internet. I don't remember exactly where. I'll have to go and find that. But it is a reference to role-playing servers, because on World of Warcraft, there's 3 types of servers. There's PvP servers, which is you go and quest and some high-level guy with adequacy issues kills you. And then there's PvE server. The third type...
No, I've never liked PvP servers for, like, any game.
Yeah, the PvP server is where some of my friends from Brownwood made their guild, and Gina and I eventually stopped playing there because we couldn't get anything done. So the third type of server is the role-playing servers. And on the role-playing servers, if you go to Goldshire, which is the starting zone town, little village with a few buildings just south of Stormwind, which is the human city, you go to Goldshire and you'll see people all over the place role-playing. And it's mostly like a few humans, mostly a lot of guys playing female elves, and then all the furries playing pandas and worgen and druids in animal shape, and maybe a few Draenei, but mostly night elves. Night elf dudes, night elf chicks, but mostly guys playing chicks, I'm sure. So Yar Yar Hump Hump is a story of a guy who went to a role-playing server and poked around. And I'm going to keep it pretty tame and PG for the podcast, but if you go and read it, it's quite a racy story.
PG cast.
So he was on the underground tram that goes between the Dwarf City Ironforge and the human city Stormwind. And as he gets off the tram in Ironforge, he sees an emote in his chat, because anyone within the area that does an emote, you see it. So he sees a racy emote, and he immediately is like, I've got to find out where this is going on. And he's playing this dwarf, and he goes and he finds them in a corner, because that's going to hide them for some reason with public emotes. Like I said, this is Joseph throwing shade day. He goes and finds them, and he stands next to them and starts trying to join in the racy roleplay.
No! Don't do it, Yar Yar Hump Hump!
And that's where the term Yar Yar Hump Hump comes from, because that's what he starts saying in all caps. To the point where they're trying to get him to leave, and he's saying things like, Dwarven hand cannon, and that's all I'm going to say. And eventually, they disperse because he's ruined the mood. And then at the end of the story, the so-called girl of the roleplay is sending him tells saying he should leave them alone, but trying to, like, have the high road in her tone, like, I don't know why you would seek to bother us so much. It's a story that if you play WoW, eventually you're going to hear, so I will link dump it. If you want to go read it, go ahead. I've given the PG version, but it's quite an entertaining read, and that's the saga of Yar Yar Hump Hump.
So bad.
It's terrible.
I've tried to get in on some of like the roleplay stuff that people do on ESO, but I find that they're really cliquish people, and it can be really
very
hard.
Cliquish, very elitist. I've done roleplay like on forums, not like anything over PG, but just like story-based roleplay, like Redwall and that kind of thing. Yeah. Before I really knew much about D&D, it was basically D&D kind of stuff. And what I found was there was a lot of elitism, a lot of furries, and a lot of correcting you and telling you what you're doing is wrong. For example, in Star Wars The Old Republic, there are role-playing servers. Yeah. Like servers designated for that. There would be people who would go so far as report you if your name wasn't good enough, if it wasn't Star Warsy enough. Okay. There were even people who objected to people kiting in PvP. And if you don't know what that is, I'm assuming Tristan knows. Yeah, but for those listening who don't know what kiting is, it is what you do when you don't want another player to get a lock on you and hit you. So you jump around, you get out of their line of attack, and then you hit them in the back, and then you move around. You try to stay away from them so they can't hit you. Especially useful if you're a ranged class, but if it's melee, you're always trying to get behind them so you can hit them in the back, and that's time spent not getting hit. So in Star Wars, just like any other game, if you are running around in circles and jumping and trying to evade getting hit, if you're on a role-playing server, that might actually ruin the immersion. Sorry to burst your bubble, but they're trying not to get killed. But there were people actually complaining about it.
Kiting's totes unfair, man.
No, it's hilarious sometimes, though, because people who are skilled enough to find ways to get the kiters, it's hilarious, because I had that with a fighting game that I would do. People would pick the characters that are strong in a certain aspect, and they'd capitalize on it. And then I found a good method to get around it, and I just destroyed people with it, and it was funny. And they'd get butthurt.
I did an awful lot of PvP in Lord of the Rings Online because it was just an open zone. This was open zone one zone, as opposed to World of Warcraft. You're either on a PvP zone, so you're never safe, really, or you have to go to a battleground. So it's everyone coming there to do an organized, fair fight. So it was kind of fun, the chaos of an open zone designated for it. Occasionally, we would organize ourselves. We would be in Vent together, and we would actually tell both sides, hey, we're going to do 1-versus-1 fights behind such and such building. That was fun because you could hone your skills with kiting and trying to stop people from kiting using stuns and slows. Mm-hmm. And the character I played the most was actually a spider. So they were pro kiters because they could web you and then hit you with poisons from far away.
Actual spider? Or?
Yes.
Really?
In Lord of the Rings, you can play a spider.
Nifty.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
They focus around debuffing and damage over time effects from poison and slowing you down with webs and stunning you with poisons.
Were you super low armor and decently low health?
You're kind of low armor, but as you progress, you actually become kind of tanky. They actually have quite a bit of health. They're just a little bit squishy as far as armor goes. What you would do back in the day, the class has changed quite a bit since I stopped playing. Back in the day, you would start off with a skill that, after about 15 seconds, stuns the opponent for like 5 seconds. That's a long time. You guys know that.
It is a long time.
So you start off with that. For a spider, that's the big finish, is to stun them for 5 seconds and just let your damage tick for 5 seconds. So then you start dotting them up, and then you web them, and then you put hatchlings on them, which after a few seconds, hatchlings will hatch 3 of them and start hitting them. So you would just kite them around. You'd web the ground, and they're like super slow, and you're just backing up and hitting them with poison the whole time. Then they get stunned, and they're like spinning around like a cartoon, and then the damage just ticks down, and by the time they're out of the stun, they have one chance to kill you, and then they're dead.
Yeah. The fun days of online multiplayer.
I missed our Ragnarok Online. War of Imperium was a lot of fun.
It was just all high wizards, though. Like, you never saw any other classes. It was all high wizards and monks. And, the knights. The high, what do they call them? Lord Knights.
The AGI Knight builds.
The ones where they had Berserk, the ones with the Berserk card.
Yeah.
Was it a balance issue, or was it more like some classes were easier than others?
Well, the game is balanced in its core form, because while like high wizards, the big problem with high wizards in the PvP is that their spells dealt high damage over areas of effect with status effects, and you would you just couldn't do anything because they just nail you with status effects, stuns. And high damage. In the core game, that was okay that they did that because there were cast times that you could interrupt. Mm-hmm. It would take them a second or two to cast each individual spell. But almost any, self-respecting PvP server was always what they called a high rate server. And high rate referred to the experience gain, so how quickly you went up through the levels. But for some reason, this
talking about private servers or the actual care.
I'm talking about we only ever got to play on private servers.
No, I played on the official site or official Ragnarok for quite a while.
So IRO.
Yeah, IRO.
Right. So, but IRO didn't have high-rate servers, and
Yes.
IRO left the cast times in. In the high-rate servers, where you would have PvP and you would have the War of Imperium going on, they took away the Dex Max. And not having a Dex Max allowed you to get your cast times to 0.
Oh, so the dexterity
completely,
is what affects the cast time?
Right. Your Dex got capped, which made it so that you couldn't get your cast times down past a certain level, but on all the high rate servers, there was no cap on it. So you could get your cast times to 0. So you would get, if you ever saw, and they were almost always PvP, the whole world was PvP server. So no matter what you were doing, if you were trying to hunt a certain boss, trying to find a certain item, trying to meet up with friends, you'd see a high wizard and you'd have to run for the hills. Because anytime somebody's playing a high wizard, it's because they want to just walk around and murder people. And all they would do is they would drop the AoE ice spell, which would freeze you in place, and then they would hit you with the lightning spell, which dealt critical damage because you had the ice element on you from their previous
Jupiter's Thunder.
Jupiter Thunder, and you would die in one combo because every hit would do 10,000 damage.
You know what's interesting to me is whenever people find a way to abuse a stat that wasn't intended to be abused. Like in that case where dexterity doesn't seem like that would be a caster stat, but they found a way to get like maximum dexterity and have no cast time. What was interesting, another Lord of the Rings story, is a very short one. There was a very good Runekeeper player because my Free People's character was a dwarf Runekeeper. If you played Lightning, which was the most popular because you would lightning, epic conclusion, it had a high crit rate if you had all the lightning buffs on you from the lightning spells, and then you would one-shot something. So there was a really good player who played Runekeeper who discovered that your intellect didn't matter because all you had to do was get those buffs going from your other spells and then get a good crit, and your damage would still be good. And so what he stacked was actually melee and health. Because in between hits, if something's in melee range, you're still hitting them with your rune tablet as an auto attack. So he stacked melee and health one night and came out for 1v1s, and nobody could kill him because all that mattered was the buff from the spells he was getting to increase his crit chance. His intellect didn't matter.
He was just mowing people down, huh?
Well, nobody could kill him, so he had the health to survive it, so it didn't matter if he was doing lower than normal
damage. And then if
damage.
they got in melee range, he was getting the free auto attack, which seems negligible, but, I mean, if someone's at 7,000 health, the melee can comprise 1,000 of that by the end of the fight.
Wow. Nice.
So it increases his survival chances by a good, 25 to 50%. It was really interesting, and I love when people figure that stuff out.
Yeah, there was so in a related story, talking back to RO about the high wizards who would just go around, freeze you and Jupiter you. I never played high wizards, but I hated dealing with those guys. I hated getting killed by them. So I found out after a while that there was an enchantment you could put on your armor. Nobody ever used it because there were much more stats-oriented enchantments to put on instead. But I found one that actually made you immune to ice.
Mm-hmm.
So I was playing a paladin, which have one of the highest HPs in the game. And anytime, you see one of those high wizards walking around, he's just looking for people to kill. I would see him, and I would walk away from him, and you would notice him following you. I'm like, okay, I know where this is going. So I would just stand still, and he would start dropping Froststorm on me, one after another, which has like a 50% chance to freeze on each hit. And he's sitting there wondering why I'm not freezing, and I'm not taking any damage because I stacked spell resistance. So I can't move because Froststorm has a displacement effect on it, and every hit moves you, and so he can just keep, because there was no cast time, he could just keep dropping it on my head, but he also couldn't kill me.
Nice. well, on IRO, it was a little more reasonable with that kind of stuff, and it was a lot of fun because people would use those wizards would be in the Imperium room, constantly casting the Ice Storm over top of the entryway.
And you'd need a few of them because on IRO the Froststorm's cast time was like a second and a half or 2 seconds almost.
But there were strategies and stuff. You'd have people who would go in with resistances to stuff, and you'd also have the assassins with backslide, and they would backslide into the room, which was pretty cool.
It was always so horrible watching those guys just moonwalk through a room.
Tristan, I can just imagine the mage trying to kill you with the frost and repeating the frost spell, and on his end, he's smashing his face into the keyboard going, why isn't he dying?
They would. There was, oh my god, just to distract from Malachi's story for a split second here, but there was, at one point, there was an assassin cross who would follow me around, and he would think that I wouldn't notice him because he had cloak, but he would always cloak close enough to me that I would actually... that I would see the speech bubble above his head that said cloak. If he got a little further away, I wouldn't have noticed it, but he cast it within range that I actually saw the cast happen. And so he would cloak, he would enchant deadly poison, which gives him a bunch more damage, and then he would come up and try to kill me. But I'm a paladin, and my skill tree was based on Reflect Shield. So I was reflecting 75% of his damage back at him, and he has 1/4 of my HP. So I'm standing there, he appears, he goes, ba-da-da-da-da-da, and dies. I haven't done anything to him. He goes, dies, he's laying on the ground, and you have like the sit command, so I sat on top of him, just, doing nothing. And there's a dot above him, and he goes, well, how much damage did I do to you? And I said, you got me down to like 80%. You did 20% of my health to me. He goes, oh. And he respawns somewhere else.
So, even though PvP servers can be a pain in the butt sometimes, there's a lot of fun instances on occasions.
Yeah, there are instances and occasions where you can counter build, but, there's only so much fun you can have. The only other thing that I wanted to say about RO was that even on IRO, there was one broken class, which was the Monk, because the Azura Strike, they could power it up beforehand, and they could pretty much one-shot anybody, even on the official server.
Anything. Not even anyone. Anything.
Huh.
Yeah, they would go in and they would just sit where a boss normally spawns, just powering up the Azura Strike, and they would have like a priest next to them restoring their magic so that they could just keep stacking on the buff, and you'd be like fighting your way through the dungeon, and then all of a sudden a priest and a monk teleport in because they have the teleport spell.
Or they use flywings
or flywings, yeah. And they ran, which allows you to teleport to random locations in the dungeon, so they just keep random teleporting until they appear in the boss area. Whereas you've been fighting your way through the labyrinth. You finally get to the boss, you're like, alright, I'm gonna kill this boss. All of a sudden, poof, monk appears, Azura Strike, it's dead. One shot, you get nothing. It's like,
So that thing you said about the strike where you just build up the buff seems like an oversight in development. I don't think that seems like that was intended. And those kind of things happen all the time.
It was supposed to be a big, final hit, but you were supposed to have to hit the enemy with, the 5 previous steps of the attack before you could do the final one, but they found a way to just charge it up so that they could do it with the first hit and get basically the final hit damage.
Wow. So my story is, there were some guys that I played a few games with, and they went and they played Rift when it first came out, and they told me a story about the way that the Rogue class was built at launch and originally was fixed. But the problem was they didn't cap the defense stat, the dodge stat or whatever it was. And so people were finding a way to make their dodge so high that nobody could hurt them.
Yeah.
So they were all playing like Rogue multi-classes, but then,
So they had a perfect dodge.
well, they were all playing it and they didn't know about the bug, about the unintended feature, you might call. So they were playing against a rogue who had stacked that so high that they couldn't damage him. He killed all three or four of them. And then he sent them a tell, was like, oh yeah, you probably didn't hear about this, but you can stack your dodge as far as you want and there's no cap on it. And they were like, what, seriously? And then it got patched in the first patch.
Well, at least they were quick about fixing it.
Yeah. I like when games can keep things balanced, and that's one thing that the games that have stuck around for the longest time have been good about, is fixing problems. Anything else? I feel like this has been a good episode.
Yeah, we've talked all about MMORPGs, so some small set of our fans are going to enjoy it. Everybody else will be like, what are they talking about?
Well, hopefully we've got enough of a nerdy fan base that they'll just enjoy the talk and be like, oh, he said Rogue. I understood that. Good for you, Captain America.
What? Gamers are going to come and listen to a gaming podcast? BS.
What? No, it's all our moms.
What?
It's our moms hitting F5.
Well, they just come to listen to our sexy voices.
Wow. That was like the other direction.
That
but
was...
alright. Yes, my Rodin.
So everyone go and add Malachi on Rooster Teeth.
Don't do it.
Add the Tusky Cabbie.
It's a trap.
It is a trap.
It's a tarp.
He'll never say hello to you, and he'll never put a picture up.
Hey, actually I did. There's a picture. It's not a picture of me, though. It's a picture, though. It's one of my pictures I've used before.
Oh, Tusky Cabbie has uploaded a new picture.
Sweet.
Oh, okay. It's Cosmos.
Okay, I think we need to wrap up. We need to wrap up.
Do it.
All right.
Oh, Alex wanted us to do a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Can I do it?
Do it.
Goodbye. He wanted us to do the caboose. Do it again, Tristan. Do it again. It was good.
No, it was not. Shut up.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that was good. I like that.
I can't. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to embarrass myself.
Okay, fine. I had fun. It's been fun. Come back next week because we have a special guest from the Rooster Teeth community. I'm not telling you who it is, so you have to come back.
I don't even know who it is.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
So I'm looking at my cursor, and I'm going to put it down to click stop recording, and then I realize I'm looking at my cursor through OBS on the wrong monitor.
Way to go.
That's like when there's a fake fly on a TV screen.